Welcome everybody in our online tutorial in which we will create the exercises that you prepared of the second part of folder 4. Of course, you can watch this video more than once or pause it when you need to or rewind if you want to. If you have any remaining questions after you watch the video, please don't hesitate and send me a message, and here we go. Let's start by having a look at exercise 7.4. That was the first exercise you needed to prepare. It's an exercise in which we have to conjugate verbs, but we have to use the passive voice, and that makes it a little bit more tricky. In case you don't remember anymore, to form the passive voice, you first of all need to determine which tense you would use if this were an active sentence. And that will then become the tense of the verb to be, to which you will then add the past participle of the original verb. To give you an example, an active sentence is, for instance, the baker bakes bread. Bakes is used in the present simple tense. If you have to put that in the passive voice, it becomes the bread is baked. Is put in the same tense as our verb was in the original sentence, namely bakes, which was in the present simple. Is also in the present simple. And then you add the past participle of your original verb, which was to bake. So bread is baked. Let's have a look at the exercise then. You can see the solutions which I have projected. But in this exercise, we need to use the present perfect tense, as it describes an action in the past with a result or a clear effect in the present. And that's important in this exercise. So please have a look at the sentences and see whether you did everything correctly. So, for example, if we have a look at the first sentence, a lot of houses are in ruins. They have been destroyed. You can clearly see that this is an action in the past with a result in the present, namely the houses which have been destroyed. We need to use the present perfect tense, but the passive form, which means that we put our form of the verb to be in the passive voice, have been, and then we add the past participle destroyed. Okay, the same is true for the other sentences, and have a look. If you have any more remaining questions about those, you can always ask me. Good, let's now have a look at the next exercise. It becomes a little bit more difficult as we need to determine here whether to use the active or the passive voice first. That is our first objective. Then we need to choose the correct tense as well. So let's try and have a look at the sentences and see what you guys filled in. First sentence, former Prime Minister Tony Blair has been introduced or was introduced, is also correct, to 9 children who were named after him during a visit to Kosovo. As you will notice, the entire text is about a visit which Tony Blair made to Kosovo. That action takes place in the past, so normally we would use the past simple for that kind of action. But if that action has clear results in the present, as it is focused on in certain sentences, we need to use the present perfect tense. We'll see how it goes sentence by sentence. So in the first sentence, was introduced or were named, I would choose those 2 options because you're talking about an action in the past that has the link or the effect of that action is not clearly emphasized here. So it's just an action in the past, no link to the present. The 9 were all born after NATO's 1999 military campaign. That is also a time indication here, which was strongly backed by the former UK Prime Minister. In other words, you're talking about something which took place in 1999. No link to the present here, so you choose the past simple tense, but of course you have to put it in the passive voice, which becomes was backed. You put our form of the verb to be in the past simple in this case, plus the past participle backed. Mr. Blair is credited with playing a decisive role in ending former Serbian leader and so on and so on, is credited. Why do we use the present simple here? Because we're talking about a fact in the present. We are no longer talking about that visit to Kosovo or that campaign of 1999. It's simply a fact in the present. But also you have to put it in the passive voice here. Why is that? Well, because the agent, the person who is responsible for this action, is not mentioned in the sentence. It's not necessary either to mention that person or persons. It's simply about a fact. And in Dutch as well, you would use a passive construction here. Mr. Blair, paying only his second visit to the capital since 1999, which one are we doing? Was greeted by a crowd of several thousand people. Was greeted, here once again, we're talking about that visit. Action in the past, no link to the present. Was greeted by a crowd of several thousand people is our by plus agent, which makes clear that we definitely need to use a passive construction here. Before he was presented to the crowd, Mr. Blair was told that his name was quite common in the country. Two actions taking place in the past, no link to the present, so the past simple in the passive voice. Mr. Blair has been regarded as something of a hero in Kosovo ever since he supported the war in 1999. Has been regarded because it's an action that started in the past and continued up to the present. When that is the case, you need to use the present perfect tense, but here you need to put it in the passive construction, in the passive form. Ever since he supported the war in 1999, he supported the war then. Action in the past, no link to the present. It's clear, active sentence. The subject is he supported the war. It wasn't the first time a prime minister was welcomed as a hero. Fact about the past, no link to the present. And as you will notice now, the text shifts and they now start describing another action in the past, namely the time that Argentina, in the next sentence, it's made clear, invaded the Falkland Islands and the war that followed after. So the text now goes on to describe that. Let's have a look at that. When Argentina invaded, past simple, 1982, no link to the present, Margaret Thatcher decided to take action. Action in the past, no link to the present. Argentina had been asked to withdraw by the UN Security Council, but as it refused to do so, the United Kingdom sent their military. 3 actions in the past, and in 13, we have an action taking place before another past action, and in that case, we need to use the past perfect and not the present perfect tense. Let me just see if I can shift this and make sure you can see the rest. Where were we? In 15 and 16, after a short battle in the air and at sea, the British landed on the 21st of May and fought on land until the army surrendered on the 14th of June. All of these elements are facts in the past, no link to the present, past simple tense, clearly active sentences. The text then continues. The Argentine soldiers were captured. This is a passive construction because the person who did the person who is responsible for the action is not mentioned. That's why it's turned into a passive construction. The soldiers were captured, and about 650 were killed. You can also add were here. That is correct. Almost half of these deaths were when the warship was sunk by the British submarine. This is clearly a passive construction. It was sunk by the submarine. The agent of the submarine is mentioned here. Relations were restored in 1989. Clear action in the past, passive construction. And then since the mid-2000s, the relations have become increasingly tense, have become actually in the past that continues up to the present. Okay, because we're talking about since the mid-2000s, so that is an action which started then and continued up until now. Okay. In the next part, we're going to talk about how we need to express past habits in English. You watched the short video, and then we'll be able to fill in the missing verb form in 11.1, which is the word would. John thinks about how his son Joe would come and spend the night in the firehouse for his birthday. In this sentence, you are describing a past habit. It is something that happened regularly in the past, called past habit. Let's see how we can express that in English. Let's look at the example sentences in the blue grid. Zlata used to play with her friends in the park. Joe would come and spend the night. Two possibilities, two different types of constructions. The first one, would plus infinitive. The second one, used to plus infinitive. And you use them to express a repeated action in the past. If you form questions, what sports did you used to play? I used to play football. I didn't used to play football. In questions and negative sentences, make sure to use used to without a D instead of used to with a D. Used to with a D is only used in affirmative or positive sentences. Pay attention, we cannot use would plus infinitive for past states. Have a look at the example there. Zlata used to live in an apartment in Sarajevo, not he would live in an apartment in Sarajevo. Would is only possible for past actions, not for past states. So there is a difference there. If you're not sure, use used to. That is always correct. Let's have a look at the next page and see. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Let's have a look and see if you guys manage to find or write down the sentences. 3 sentences about Father John's happy memories using would plus infinitive, which you then use to describe a repeated action here. Possibilities, if you have a look at screenshots and of course keeping in mind the video that you watched. They would have a cake. The short form of would is they'd have a cake. The guys he worked with would take a milk container and they'd cut out the facsimile of a building, which means the form of a building. They would put it on top of the cake and then they'd light it. Joe would throw a pot of water on it and both the boys would call him when they were working. These are just possibilities. You may have written down things which are slightly different and which may also be correct. So if you're in doubt about that, you can always ask me later on. Question 11.3, why is that badge ironic? Or the badge number 3436? Because the boys were respectively 34 and 36 years old when they died. And what does John mean by I don't have any could've, should've, or would've? Means that he wouldn't have changed anything if he could. His son's last words were, I love you, and that helps him sleep at night. There is no doubt about things that happened or things he could have done differently.